even if it's with strangers. Today I'm looking at Ripple and XRP just for the last 29 days or so, from the 1st to today's date, the 29th, and it never ceases to amaze me, and I say this every month that I look at Ripple and XRP, just how much is going on with Ripple and XRP. To add to this use case here, this diagram here, to add to this, again, they're going into gaming now, they're going into music. Don't forget they can do ICOs on their platform, and obviously they also do smart contracts, but they also have, as you know, in the previous YouTube I did on Ripple and its history, they also have an exchange now. So, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if Ripple add to this that they become a bank or they take over someone with a banking license. Nothing would surprise me, I have to say, with Ripple. Also coupled with that, they now have about 534 employees, and they just keep growing and growing and growing. But we'll see this within the next couple of slides. Also, if I do miss something, I apologise for that. There's just so much going on with Ripple and XRP, and if I do happen to put in something twice, I also apologise for that. I have a database and I just pick up exactly what's in the database. So just going forward, there's a lot to catch up on, so please do get yourself a cup of coffee. Thank you. It will be a long YouTube, this one. Thank you. It always is with the Ripple. So if we go to the next slide, I just want to put this one up because people often do complain, you know, they're very annoyed by how long it takes for the price of Ripple to move. And look, I did a previous YouTube on this, how long it does take for new technology to be known by the masses, and often it can take, you know, in the past, taken anything from 7 to 10 years. Notwithstanding that time delay now is shorter. It's normally taking about, 4 to 5 years. We saw that with Instagram. It took about 4 to 5 years before the technology got fairly well known. So my point is, though, in saying that, if you look at something like Amazon, for example, the share was well below $7 way back pre-2000, back in 98, 97, and essentially it took a long time for the price of Amazon to actually rise. And rise it did. We basically saw anything from 2006, even in 2008, and after 2008, it literally got to $2,000 US. Okay, and if we go way back to May 16, 1997, it was $1.73. So I guess the thing is, it just takes a long time for something to reach its potential price of where it should be. And there's a lot of prices out there for 2020 for XRP, but often you just have to sit patiently. It's an investment, and things don't go up, in one line, and they do take a long time. And I've shown you that with previous YouTubes, which you'll be able to see on my YouTube channel, Esoteric Trading Solutions. So just looking at the next one, and there's just always so much going on with Ripple, always. If we look at the next slide, and just go into that next slide, as I said, Ripple has incredible stories, and it just never ceases to amaze me. Just get that right there. The thing that amazes me with Ripple is it just continues to onboard more and more clients, okay, as a source of liquidity on demand, and it brings utility and volume to the XRP ecosystem. And I guess the thing is, the risk of XRP is asymmetric given where it is at the moment. And essentially, literally, there's so much that hasn't been, in my mind, priced in the price of XRP in terms of the fundamentals of the business of Ripple and RippleNet's technology. So if we look at Solgenic, Solgenic's basically looking to add all this sort of thing on top of XRP's ledger. Again, MoneyGram is expanding more and more, and is doing now a service with Visa Direct, and they're expanding into Spain and the Philippines using a debit card type service, which will be internationally launched. Okay, so the thing is also, MoneyGram is the first company in the industry that enables cross-border transfers from the United States using Visa Direct, and it doesn't surprise me that there was a takeover offer for MoneyGram just recently. And early this year also there was a takeover offer by Alibaba. So it doesn't surprise me at all. And I'm actually surprised to see where the price of MoneyGram is at the moment in terms of the stock price. I think it's down to about $2.16. So it really surprises me the way people price market sometimes. But Ripple just keeps coming out with the good news all the time, and I just, it never ceases to amaze me how it just continues to come out with fantastic news constantly and constantly. Did I just go through one too quickly there? No, I didn't. So there we go. So we look at the next one. Solo is built on XRP's ledger, and essentially, again, it's a new client for XRP, and this will increase utility going forward for XRP as well. So, which is a really great story in itself. Cornfield uses crypto Solo to serve as a bridge between cryptocurrency assets and stocks, or EFTs, which is exchange traded funds, okay? And they can be converted to a tokenized stablecoin version of Solgenek, tradable and redeemable for XRP. So just another way of utilization. If we look at Bob Rass, Cornfield CEO, he basically loves XRP and believes that it will become the global reserve currency. And I actually agree with that. I've always thought that, and I do agree with that statement. Another thing I need to talk about, and it won't be in this video because it's just too in detail to cover in this video, but we really do need to talk about the VOCA law changes. Paul Volcker, it's with a C, my apologies, it has to be a C on that, which I need to fix, but the laws have changed, and we do need to cover that as well in another video. And that's going to be fairly important from the 1st of January 2020, so it could even be important for XRP as well. So on the 5th of December, this is what came out. Again, Ripple partner Flash FX may extend ODL platform to Japan, and basically it's actively promoting on-demand liquidity and expanding, in Mexico, the Philippines. It is an Australian company as well, and is using very much the Ripple technology, and will be using XRP. The Forte leverage, and also we're talking about Forte. They leverage off the interledger protocol of Ripple, and they'll be also using XRP, which is another great story. Ripple's gone into gaming. Into the gaming industry, which is a $140 billion global industry, and this will also accelerate the utility or the use of XRP as well. CoinSpeaker XRP adoption extension, and basically, again, this will increase the utility of XRP, and we know that Forte raised $100 million via Xspring to support the developers working on live gaming economies with over 50,000 daily active users. So we go to the next page. We know that SBI Giant, and this has been mentioned previously, is now paying their shareholders dividends in XRP, and essentially this will be rolled out to a lot of other companies as well. This is groundbreaking as well. It's a utility. It's increasing the usage of XRP, which is a great story, okay? Also, XRP was mentioned again in US Faster Payments Council. The US Faster Payments Council held its election for its board of directors, and Pat Thelen, Ripple's Vice President for Strategic Accounts, was elected for a spot in the Technology Providers Membership Agreement segment at large. So Ripple's presence at this US Faster Payments Council is really important. There are other clients there, or other big banks, JP Morgan, Walmart, Target, Visa, and MasterCard, just to name a couple of them. But the inclusion of Ripple is absolutely substantial in this, because it really means that Ripple are in there. The Fed certainly knows about them, the big banks know about them, Walmart knows about them, Target knows about them, and it's just more publicity for Ripple and for XRP, which is a great story. Now, clearly, they want to make faster payments and cheaper payments, and that's certainly going to be, as far as I'm concerned, the theme for next year. There's no doubt about that in my mind. If we go to the next one here, again, this is another one about clients or ex-clients of XRP and lawsuits, and again, Ripple came out and said, look, these lawsuit filings are just too, they've come in too late, just an absolute joke, that's just the way it is. So also, as I said before, XRP story, where basically the marketplace will now allow song creators to sell their digital content in exchange for XRP cryptocurrency. Okay, and also one of my clients told me about this here. If you go into this, it shows the big picture for XRP and just the ecosystem in a much more detailed way. So please have a look at that as well. So the next one was Ripple did a report, Blockchain in Payments Report 2019. They called it the Flywheel Set in Motion. And I found this quite an interesting report. It was a report done in August-September 2019, Blockchain in Payments Report, analysed from 1053 respondents across 21 countries who are directly involved with payment services at their organisation. So there was a different country mix of people and obviously executives and people that actually count. And they found that there was an incredibly strong interest in digital assets, and that many of the respondents believed that digital assets were the way to go, and that certainly a faster payment system was certainly the way to go rather than the old swift, clunky horse and buggy system. So from that report, what it indicated is that next year and the next couple of years, there's going to be much more business going into blockchain and looking for faster payments within financial markets and within capital markets per se. Now, this report also is exactly the results of this report is pretty much the same as last couple of YouTubes I did with KPMG and Deloitte's huge chartered accounting firms that came up with the same thing. Literally 90% of respondents of business basically said they would be looking at blockchain and looking at faster payments, particularly in finance and particularly in settlement systems. So it basically bodes for a great year next year, and it looks like a lot of them are fairly familiar with XRP as well and Ripple. So the report basically said the top reasons for using pre-funding, immediately being able to send the money to destination countries, faster payout for recipients and better exchange rates. So 89% of them, and this is up from last year, said they're extremely interested in real-time settlements, and 95% of respondents who have already implemented blockchain are extremely interested in real-time settlements as well. So on this flywheel set in motion, the report actually says we're about here at the moment, building trust and demand in terms of blockchain in payments, rather than being here, which is great. And next year, in the next couple of years, we're going to pretty much go around there, which basically be expediting moving to go live and boosting with digital assets. So it's a pretty good story from what I can see, and it looks like, certainly in the next couple of years, there's going to be very, very strong movement to real-time payment systems and digital assets, particularly when they're as cheap as XRP is, and particularly when the RippleNet system can literally settle liquidity within 3 seconds, which is very, very fast indeed, and very, very liquid, much more liquid than even currency pairs. For example, if you're looking at the US yen, for example, you might have a 1 pip to a 3 pip spread. If you're looking at non-tradable or non-liquid currency pairs, that spread could be anything. It could be literally up to 200 points buy-sell spread, and therefore that's where the cost comes in. Or even if you do a forward rate agreement, that spread could even be wider than that. A spread could be 500 to 1,000 basis points if it's not a liquid currency pair. So if we go to the next slide, just looking at the next one, also the Bank of America names Ripple innovative technology maker. Now the Bank of America, as you know, is one of the largest banks in America. I think it is the largest, the world's largest, and it's one of the most influential banks in the world. And they admit that Ripple offers a truly innovative solution and mentions it in a report, innovation example, Ripple cross-border solution. And I must admit, that's an amazing thing for a huge bank, one of the largest banks in the world, Bank of America, to actually state this. Now, Bank of America, has many different patents, and they're very technology adapted and very in tune with what is going on. and they basically said that the old settlement systems and the old SWIFT are clunky. They're like the horse and cart, and Ripple has the solution to the problems of banking infrastructure, where the old SWIFT system, if it's foreign currency transaction that has to go to the Middle East or something else, may not get there for 10 to 15 days. So the fact that the Bank of America have said this is very bullish in my mind for XRP going forward and Ripple as a business going forward. If we look at the next one, there was a document here. There was obviously a report on Twitter by Jeff Hardy, thank you very much, Jeff, about the SEC mentioning, a company about they needed new infrastructure in terms of settlement type transactions, and a tweet went out to obviously Brad Garlinghouse and Joel Katz, which is David Schwartz, whether they could confirm whether the plumbing or the infrastructure of the banking system as it stands, was going to be changed by, say, RippleNet. And nothing would surprise me in this business at all, because in my mind, the infrastructure of the banking world, the financial markets world, in terms of settlements, seriously needs to be changed. Now, don't forget, just because SWIFT say they can do real-time gross settlement, it's only available to the banks, and also SWIFT are using Ripple's drivers to formulate anything like real-time gross settlement. So they don't have the flexibility that Ripple have in terms of the exchanges or anything. Also, they're dealing with currency, and as I said before, currency would not have the tightness in spread that XRP has. Okay, now don't forget also, there's been big funds out there that manage a lot of money, and Mike Arlington, who manages an XRP fund, remember in the past, transferred $50 million in XRP, and it cost him less than 30 cents US. Now, if he was doing that in foreign exchange markets, it would have cost him 25,000 US at least, okay? So that puts it in perspective to how cheap XRP is and how liquid XRP is, okay? So we go to the next slide here. Also, I found this, more clients, 3S Money Club, a London-based digital B2 bank merchant banking platform, is joining Ripple's network of banks and financial institutions. So CEO Ivan Sininsky made this announcement on LinkedIn. By joining Ripple's growing global network, financial institutions can process payments worldwide instantly, reliably, and cost-effectively. I mean, that's pretty much the story. If this stuff didn't work, as I said before, and I know there's fudders out there that say this stuff doesn't work. If it didn't work, Ripple would be sued to the hilt. Okay, it's a very litigious world that we live in these days. And if Ripple's technology didn't do what it's supposed to do, they would be so many thousands of suing cases. The fact of the matter is their technology says what they say it does. Payments are nearly instant, within 3 to 5 seconds. They go quickly, reliably, and very cheap, very cost-effective indeed. So if we look at the utility of Ripple and the liquidity of Ripple, and thank you King Blue XRP for this, it's getting more and more and more. The utility and the liquidity is just growing, okay? It's a 500% increase in 3 months for one corridor, okay? And the corridor is Bitso XRP against the Mexican peso. And that sort of volume is just unbelievable, seriously. That's just one corridor, okay? And that volume has literally gone up from nothing to way up here. The liquidity is and that's just one small corridor, which I find incredible. So if we look at central banks, and again, the Federal Register government, they have also been talking about Ripple and electronic transfers. Ripple again has been mentioned with the ECB. We know that Christine Lagarde is very familiar with Ripple's technology and XRP. And the first thing she did with the first meeting was put, digital cryptocurrency on the table, and basically said, we need to look at this, and we need to look at it and see how it can help us at the ECB, and we should be ahead of the curve. And I think that is pretty substantial in itself. I mean, she's got in there after Mario Draghi and basically said this is what we should be looking at straight away before she's even said anything else. So there is some talk that the ECB could be developing a digital euro, but it's not actually confirmed. They are going to be forming a task force. They're trying to reduce their costs. Obviously, they're trying to reduce the middlemen, their finance costs. They want to increase their liquidity. There's just so many things they need to do, and they need to look at digital currency. And Christine Lagarde is absolutely right about this, the European Central Bank president, and I agree with it totally. If we look at this one, there was a letter from Santander Bank to the Consumer Final Protection Bureau. I don't know whether you can see that letter, but in that letter it basically mentions Ripple, and it literally says SWIFT is just not a viable solution. And I thought that was interesting, so please do have a look at that. Some people are worried that SWIFT's going to be a viable solution and be a competitor of Ripple and RippleNet. They've got to be on drugs, seriously. As I said before, SWIFT is a horse and cart. Trying to put on a Maserati on top, or the fastest speedboat being Ripple on top of its infrastructure, and it has serious problems with its infrastructure. There have been massive amounts of hacks where central banks like the Bank of Bangladesh lost $600 million using SWIFT. I mean, some of these massive attacks and hacks have just cost central banks huge amounts of money. Notwithstanding, as I said before, SWIFT cannot settle foreign currency transactions if they're in remote places of the world within less than, say, 3 or 4 days, if they're not in liquid foreign currency, okay? It's a massive problem, and they're not a competitor to Ripple, not at all. So going to the next slide, and we're only up to the 13th of December here, which just amazes me. Again, this client says in this, SendFriend said XRP lowers remittance costs by 75%. Now, think about this logically. If using XRP in terms of RippleNet lowers a client's costs by 75%, that's like adding back 75% to the profit figure, okay? By virtue of XRP being able to lower any client's cost and giving them back 75 cents out of the dollar to the profit line, by virtue of that, and look at it logically, XRP has value. That's a fact. So anyone that says XRP doesn't have value needs rocks in their head, because if you don't use XRP, you don't reduce your remittance costs by 75 cents in the dollar, right? So XRP, by using it, gives back the client 75 cents in the dollar, and that means it has value. The client also went on to say that, because of this, they've been able to reduce their costs to their own clients down to 2%, when their competitor, Western Union, can charge up to 10%. Now, it's what I've said in the past. If SendFriend can reduce their costs to their own clients, and they have millions of clients, SendFriend is a client to XRP, to Ripple, and SendFriend have millions of clients. So Ripple is almost like a broker to SendFriend, has many more clients, like a big network of clients. They can compete with Western Union clients by saying to every one of Western Union clients, come over to us, we're only going to charge you 2%. You see what I'm saying? The world will wake up and realise that Western Union is way too expensive. We're going to go to SendFriend. Why would you pay 8% more to do your business with Western Union when you could do it with SendFriend at 2%? And this is my point with the banks as well. It's just like a mortgage loan. If a bank reduces their costs by 75 cents in the dollar, they can compete with any of their other competitors because they're getting 75 cents back in the dollar, and they can come out like the Bank of America and say, for a mortgage rate in the US, a mortgage loan, we're only going to charge you 1%. Where Bank of America's competitors, whether it be Citigroup or Morgan Stanley or whatever, are still charging 3%. The point is the consumer will not go to Citigroup or Morgan Stanley and pay 3% on their mortgage. they will go to the Bank of America. And that's my point. XRP itself has value, and anyone that tells you it doesn't have value has rocks in their head, because they are saving the client with the system 75 cents in the dollar, and that's the value. Okay, so this, I think, is an amazing story, an absolutely amazing story. SendFriend began using on-demand liquidity in June, and they do a lot with the Filipino workers who send all their money back home. Okay, this company says it has a complete list of backers, which includes Barclays, Techstars, Ripple, Mahindra Finance, and MasterCard Foundation. And it wouldn't surprise me if any of these companies, obviously excluding Ripple, would start using Ripple and XRP just simply because of this cost advantage, which is a competitive advantage in business. SendFriend have a competitive advantage over Western Union now, a massive one of 8%. Okay, 8%. And when clients get to know about this, they will not do business with Western Union. That is a fact. And that's what makes XRP valuable, even though the market is not pricing XRP properly. So you just have to be patient. Also, there's talk that the Central Bank of Sweden is looking to do an e-krona digital currency, and they're looking to do a pilot. We don't know whether to add on that, but long-time Ripple partner Accenture potentially might be picked to build Sweden's e-krona digital currency pilot. It hasn't really been confirmed, but it is out there in the wind. So keep an eye out on that. It may have been confirmed by now, I'm not sure, but certainly keep an eye on that. There was also an article here about AmericanExpress.com looking at foreign exchange and comparing Ripple to Swift GPI. As I said before, Ripple's the speedboat, Swift is the horse and buggy. Okay, so if you have a look at that article, it's a really, really interesting article. If we go to the next one here, remittance transfer under Electronic Fund Transfer Act. There was a proposed rule set down by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The Bureau also believes that expanded adoption of Swift GPI product or Ripple suite of products could similarly allow banks and the credit unions to know the exact final amount the recipients of remittance transfer will receive before they send transfers. As far as I'm concerned, Swift GPI is no match for Ripple's suite of products. Not only that, Swift is only available to the banks and not available to the likes of me or you. We literally get blown out of the water by costs of what we have to pay with Swift. Okay, the banks charge us over and above the cost of Swift, and it costs us a lot of money to deal with the banks. Okay, so literally, as I said before, Swift is the old horse and buggy, and Ripple is the speedboat. Ripple's partner Volante Technology obviously does business with Ripple, and basically more and more things are happening, and there's more apps being used, which will increase Ripple's usability in terms of the blockchain, but also XRP's utility as well. So if we go to the next slide, a lot to add to this. Thanks very much, XRP holder. I look at everything, and my clients put up stuff as well. Excuse me. Again, saying that XRP is totally undervalued, and I agree with that. As I said before, they haven't even put into it the 1.4 quadrillion market of derivatives, and the figures for derivatives are basically anything from 800 bill, I think, to 1.4 quadrillion. It's huge, okay? But it's not just that. The foreign currency market, again, we see within the financial system at the moment a big lack of liquidity, and we've seen that in the repo market that the Fed is supposed to inject liquidity into. And so we see a real liquidity problem that Ripple can fix, an XRP with online demand liquidity, literally online in seconds. Okay, so, and that's something that Swift cannot compete again. In addition, there's this client here, dLocal, expands emerging market payments platform into Africa, adding Nigeria and South Africa. So basically, dLocal roughly has, this is going to expand their market to another 450 clients, an estimated $170 billion. dLocal, an award-winning fintech company that specialises in cross-border payments for emerging markets, said they're going to expand into Nigeria and South Africa. And I have to tell you, there's a lot of money in South Africa. I used to work for a South African private investment bank, and there's a lot of money in South Africa. And certainly a lot of remittances and payments go internationally, globally, all over the world. So this is a great story. This company is in Brazil, China, India, Indonesia, and Mexico as well. So again, increasing their client base and increasing the utility of XRP is a great story. Bank XRP, again, mentioned someone interfaced Ukraine, a press conference topic. Industrial bank dealer with MoneyGram launched a new product from Ukraine that will allow senders to make a transfer from anywhere in the world to the current bank account of the recipient in any bank participating in MoneyGram system in the Ukraine. Okay, so it just shows me that, for me particularly, Ripple just seemed to be everywhere. It's just unbelievable what these guys are doing compared to other cryptocurrencies. Now, getting back to this lack of liquidity problem, we did see this, and have a look at Zero Hedge. Very, very good story. Zero Hedge writes, talking about the liquidity problem of the US banking system, and how funds got frozen. The repo rate went from 1% to 14% within 2 hours because they couldn't get access to any funding, and this is serious. So this is something that Ripple and XRP actually addresses in a big way. So going to the next slide, again, we've got a lot here, and I really need to speed this up because half an hour's already gone. Again, American fintech company recently revealed that Ripple made a $20 million investment, and so in MGI, now there is $50 million investment in MoneyGram, okay? Which is a great story because we know MoneyGram is increasing its distribution all the time, which is a really, really good story, okay? So, and the remittance corridors are going forward, and they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the volume is rising all the time, which is even better. So again, utility is the game. There's no doubt about it. Okay, so Swift pilots inbound payments tracking, says not interested in solving marginal problems. So it says corporates and banks will soon be able to track status of inbound payments in real time in the latest innovation to come out of Swift's global payments innovation. The inbound payments tracker is currently in pilot with a group of global clients, including BNP, Citi, Deutsche, HSBC, Intesa Sanpaolo, and National Australia Bank. Interestingly enough, the banks are using Ripple. National, not so much, but certainly Westpac, CBA, and ANZ. But in my mind, it will not be a competition for Ripple. And as I said before, Swift use Ripple's drivers, and this is a pilot system only at the moment, and I don't believe it's anywhere near competition for Ripple and Ripple's technology, which in my mind is amazing. Also, it doesn't look at the costs, okay? So even if they could settle real-time gross settlement, it doesn't even look at the costs of foreign exchange and the settlement delays with foreign currency in overseas markets, particularly in African markets or the Middle East, okay? So it's not even looking at the cost of FX as well. So looking at the next one, 2020 digital review, and it talks about where Ripple expect things to go, and they're quite bullish, and we will come to that. And again, Ripple reduces the sales, and we'll come to that as well, and the residual goes back to escrow. This was something that came across my desk, and one of my clients showed me this, and basically it's just a lot of the FX traders will use essentially audio for their FX deals, and often that audio is not a great story in terms of audit pool, but also RSFX is changing the way that deals are done, and basically it's establishing these pools of liquidity, which is a great story, and this is going to change the way that things are done in the foreign exchange trading banks, which will change how orders are built, how orders are tracked, and rather than the orders being tracked by audio, okay? So RS is building a trading order Lexapro system for FX banks that not only satisfies these new legal requirements, but it also specialises in the fastest growing transaction volumes in the BRIC countries and emerging economy currencies. So BRIC is basically Brazil, Russia, India and China, okay? And that's what they mean by the BRIC countries, which have enormous amounts of liquid pools of funds, and basically it's going to make it much easier for these guys to be able to follow their trading orders, which means by implication, if it's going to make it easier, by implications they may do more orders going forward, and there'll be much more flow, for example, and they may even potentially look at another system, i.e., for example, RippleNet for settlements and that sort of thing. So the thing that struck me, as we know this month, Ripple raised 200 million in funding, I should say. And I've got a question why. It just confuses me when I know Ripple have so much cash and they're so cashed up. To do 200 mil of funding is nothing for Ripple, and it just, I just scratched my head wondering why they did the funding. Maybe it's just to get into the capital markets. They did a Series C funding, which was led by Tetragon, and participation by SBI Holdings and Route 66 Ventures. And basically, this is basically giving Ripple more credibility. Maybe that's the case. They decided to do this funding in the debt markets, the capital markets, to give them more credibility. They basically said they did this funding to speed the company's onboarding of new global talent to meet market demands and to better serve its growing community of customers and partners. So I guess the thing is that in my mind they don't need the money, but they did the funding basically to get their name out there in terms of the capital markets. Now, it has been a great year for XRP and Ripple, and as XRP Crow said, he basically said, yes, 300 plus customers, and don't forget, these are 300 networking operations that have millions of customers on the other side, okay? So Ripple is selling to these 300 customers, but Ripple's very smart because these are networks that have millions and millions of clients. So the utility of XRP and the use of RippleNet is going to be more and more and more, okay? They're in 70 countries and 6 continents, 10 offices globally, 24 plus on-demand clients, and they've just done this 200 million of funding. But it just, it strikes me they don't need the money for this funding, but they probably would have done it to get more marketing on the board for sure. So if we look at this from Mazzari, basically I pay for this, it's $29 US a month. It's showing that the funding of Ripple going way back here, 2013 to here, to 2016, and now we've got 200 million. So they've done a total funding by the looks of it of 219 according to Mazzari, and basically since they went into venture capital, they certainly don't need the money, that's for sure, but obviously that's what they've done, okay? And maybe it's just to get themselves known in the capital markets. I don't really know, but that's what I'm presuming. So if we look at the next slide, whoops, just got to fix this up. It's a bit skew with this one. It's looking at Ripple's quarterly sales from Mazzari again, and it shows that the programmatic sales over time and the overall sales have been going up and going up, but Q3, those sales were reduced quite a bit. Institutional sales were 50 and programmatic sales were reduced down to 16. So, and that was done purposely by Ripple themselves, but it just shows you how sales have increased over time, and the utility of XRP is rising all the time, and the instos are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, which I thought is very, very interesting in itself to show that as well. If we go to the next slide, now I hope I haven't gone too far forward with that. No, I haven't. If we go to the next slide, and this is getting longer and longer, this YouTube, my apologies. There was a story by CNBC that now values Ripple at 10 billion, and that doesn't surprise me because I think it should be valued at a lot because it is new technology and it's amazing technology. as far as I'm concerned. Sorry, I've just done that again. I've just gone over. Bear with me for a minute. Also, Grayscale released a report. Now, Grayscale are a fund manager and they have an XRP trust. They released a report. Ripple and XRP could capture significant value from the $2 trillion global payments market. Now, I have the market as being a lot more than $2 trillion, but I thought it was a very good report. So please look at that report. They do invest in XRP, and they basically go through the differences between XRP ledger, blockchains like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and it's a very, very good report. They like XRP very, very well, and again, they put their money where their mouth is, and they actually invest in XRP as well. Okay, so that's a pretty good story in itself. So have a look at that. If we go to the next slide, MGI, the takeover of MGI, again this month, Euronet made a takeover offer for MGI. I'm quite surprised with the price of MGI is at the moment. I think it's $2.14 or something. The Texas-based money transfer company received a $954.7 million unsolicited acquisition offer from Kansas Euronet Worldwide on Tuesday, with the bidder topping a recently agreed upon acquisition price from Alabama affiliate and stressing the ease with which an American deal would gain regulatory approval. If we look at this, obviously the Alabama deal may not go through because there's concern about regulatory approval. Obviously, it was Ant Financial, which is connected with Alabama. There was concern that the Committee of Foreign Investment in the United States would not approve the deal with Alibaba/Ant Financial at $880 million, but they may approve this deal with Euronet. I guess we just have to see, time will tell, but it just shows you, in my mind, that this organisation, Euronet, thinks that MGI, MoneyGram, is the organisation to buy, and that there is a lot of growth in MoneyGram by virtue of using XRP, and I tend to agree with that as well. So going to the next slide, we've got quite a bit here. Sorry, this is becoming very long and my throat's starting to hurt because I've been talking too much. Let's go back. What have we got? We're just going to make this quicker and quicker, I think. Here we go. So Merrill Lynch and Bank of America, they talk about the innovation of Ripple cross-border. They think it's an incredible solution, and it wouldn't surprise me if these guys go into it in a big way and eventually probably even use XRP. That would not surprise me at all. MoneyGram teams up with Brightwell, another client. We've got that again, sorry. More and more growth in the system. XRP will grow exponentially going forward. Have a look at these XRP tools for making better remittance systems, says Vice Ratings. Now, Vice 2 years ago didn't like XRP, but now they've completely changed their mind. Have a look at the Margin Dec19 interview. She's the head of institutional markets. And again, State Bank of India, IBM developed RipperNet-enabled banking platform, which is great in itself. Again, the Vice Ratings Agency pays attention to Ripple's expansion and sees them as being incredible. They've changed their mind, as I said, from a couple of years ago. And also there was a story about in Japan, almost every bank is starting to adopt XRP. Okay, and there's probably about 80 odd banks in Japan, and they have a lot of wealth as well. So this is really interesting. Check out this story as well, an amazing story. So going to the next slide. Sorry, this is getting longer and longer. Ripple expands in South America, and again, South America expanding in Brazil. Brazil is a big country. I think it's got about 290 million clients in Brazil, okay? And, you know, it's a significant partnership expanding in Brazil and utilising XRP. So Santander, Bradesco, and Rendimento. So that's a big, big story. Also, have a look at this one, growth. Again, the government's still talking about Ripple. Luiz Antonio Sancho from Brazil is basically saying it's a country with substantial growth in the next couple of years, and Brazil banking regulation to facilitate financial transactions, including international opportunities, here will grow greatly in the years to come, which means if they're growing, XRP and Ripple would be growing as well. So looking at 53, just try to speed this up. There's all these things forecasts on where Ripple's price is going to be in the next couple of years. I think it's going to be quite a good price. Brad Bellinghouse said in 2020, early 2020, when he was at the Swell conference, that there will be a non-G7 bank using RippleNet and XRP. And I think it came out that he was talking about Argentina for that bank, okay? Brad forecasts at least one non-G20 currency like the Argentina peso or similar will become fully digitized within the next year. Also, Ripple statistics showed, and if you look at Craft Co., 534 people worldwide for Ripple, and they're in 6 different countries. This article mentioned only 5, US, UK, Singapore, India, and Brazil, but also they're in Australia as well, which I know for a fact. Okay, so just skipping some of that. So look, all in all, very, very positive outlook for Ripple and XRP going forward. Again, this thing I want to do another YouTube on. This is big, and it really is big, and you need to really pay attention to this. There's been changes to the VOCA rule. Now, Trump signed an agreement last year, back in May of last year, to change the VOCA rule to how banks operate in terms of their liquidity, in terms of their funding, in terms of their hedging, in terms of their trading. And there was massive compliance since 2008, okay? And this could potentially be a game changer too going forward in terms of potentially cryptocurrency markets, okay? And this new law comes into play on the 1st of January 2020. So this law has been changed. It's something that President Trump changed back in May 2018 to unravel some of the incredible draconian compliance that the banks are in since the 2008 financial crash. So I'd keep an eye out for that next YouTube, because this one's a really important one, and I'll explain this VOCA rule properly to you. But it is a really important one, and it needs to be discussed, and I will come back to that, okay, guys and girls? But this is just getting too long, this YouTube, so I apologize for that. So what can I say? This is the story, and it just gets better and better. XRP and Ripple are amazing, and I have no problem to holding XRP, because I'm just an absolute believer no matter what. So thank you very much, Cetus. More than 300 customers, 2 to 3 ones every week, 70 countries plus 60 continents. Employees is now 593. This has got 10 offices globally. That other story said 6, so this must be correct, I'd say. Just more and more transactions, more and more investors, incredible growth, incredible funding. What can I say? This is an amazing story. I don't think it gets any better than this, that's for sure. Anyway, guys, I'm sorry I've rattled on a bit, and I might have had some duplications there in my presentation, but I just pick up what the stories are in my Slack. But thank you very much for listening. I really hope this helps, and if you've got any questions, do come back to me. And thanks for listening. Take care, and it's Susie. Thank you.